Hey everybody, I want to talk about what to do if you cannot afford an attorney, what you need to know, and then how you should prioritize your life. It's mostly an opinion piece, but it's very relevant if you're stuck with trying to get out of a toxic relationship with somebody who's very vindictive, most especially if you're in a divorce with children. And I think I've covered this in the past, way deep down in the depths of my video history. But I want to bring this up again because I found myself advising people on this a whole lot over the weekend. So if you cannot afford an attorney, this is what you need to know and understand, because by default, when asked, typically nobody can really afford an attorney, right? Because most people live within their means, sometimes less, and attorney is a pretty damn big expenditure. And like I said, if you're on my channel, then chances are pretty good that you're not really going through a smooth breakup. And in a highly contested divorce, it matters. If you can't afford an attorney, trust me on this, you need an attorney more than you need the roof over your head. And you need a good attorney that's going to get it done right the first time. The best way to find a good attorney is to poll people that you know. There's attorney sites like avvo.com, but the ratings on Avvo aren't really it's not really the best way to go finding a good attorney. In my divorce, I found a 5-star attorney with a rating that was 10 out of 10. I hired them. I paid $400 an hour. In just a couple of months, I ended up overrunning my retainer with an extra $30,000 bill. And then I spent the next couple of years trying to pay that thing off. Actually, I think it took me 3 years. So, and then my next attorney was phenomenally better at handling my case. She went and corrected the mistakes of the 5-star attorney for less than $5,000. So, and she was more committed. So, and her ratings on Avvo, she didn't really have any reviews on Avvo at all. She's just one man operation, one woman operation, and just fiercely dedicated. But that's her thing. She wasn't looking to have some big, huge practice, a whole firm with an army of attorneys, and none of that. She just comes in, swoops in, and makes things right. Like, that's her shtick. So finding a good attorney that's going to work for you is critical. I'll say this about attorneys. They're used to the concept of people saying that they can't afford their services. They know. They will usually work with you on payment arrangements, okay? And it's any attorney that doesn't work with you on payment arrangements, you shouldn't hire anyways. Because if they're that inflexible, then you're going to have an inflexible attorney and you're going to end up with an inflexible result. Okay? So keep that in mind. You want to look for an attorney who's flexible, right? This is why I say it's more important to have a good attorney than the roof over your head. And this comes from personal experience. Okay? In my divorce, I was fortunate enough to have a friend who let me stay on an air mattress for 2 weeks while I got my shit figured out and found a new place to live, etc., etc. And I'm forever grateful for that. When you're in a divorce situation, most especially when there's children involved, you need to understand one thing. There's an expression called Everything is contained within the four corners of the decree. That means when you're going through a highly contested divorce, any and all troubles, issues, drama, personal problems, etc. are expected to be addressed within the divorce decree. Once the decree is signed and finalized, anything that's happened up until that day, if it's not in the decree, it did not happen. That means in the future, if you're trying to take somebody back to court, say you're a woman and you're trying to go back to make a claim or issue about getting visitation reduced because they had a DWI from years ago and they started drinking, all of that's irrelevant. It should have been handled before the divorce decree was signed. Yes, there are exceptions. Okay, I'm not telling you that it's 100% inflexible, but the proper phrase to use is, if it happened before the date your final divorce decree was signed, it is going to be really, 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 really difficult to get that thing to matter in a new legal action. It's going to be very difficult, usually impossible. So, once your divorce decree is signed, that's it. Getting any changes or updates to it are going to be pretty difficult. There's a whole subculture of judges who do not regularly like to open divorce decrees for modification. So once it's final, you can submit a request to modify the decree, and the judge has the right to turn it down and say, no, you cannot modify it. This is usually in the case of people who got divorced, they have kids together, and then you have one of the two parents who wants to accept a job in another state that pays very well and blah, blah, blah. Even if both parents agree that that's what they want, a judge can reject the idea and they say, no, you have children and there's no way in hell you're going to be putting your children on airplanes to go see each other. Sucks for you, but you've got kids and it's about the kids. I'm not letting you take your kids out of school and move them across the country. It's not happening. Judges have that kind of power and they do exercise it. So you need to understand that. So if you're being threatened by your ex saying that they're going to modify the decree, oh, and I'll get it anyways because blah, 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 chances are they won't. 90% of the time, the best case scenario or worst case scenario is that both of you go back to mediation, and whatever it is you two mediate, both of you have to agree. If your ex is attempting to strong arm you into court and strong arm a modification that suits their purposes, chances are they won't get it if you don't agree to it, right? Mediation can fail. You can walk out of mediation and then you go back to the judge and you say, yeah, mediation failed. I didn't want to be here to begin with. I don't want my kids on an airplane. I think it's a horrible idea. She wanted to try and go for it anyways. I love my kids. I want my kids to stay here. My kids come first. The kids ought to come first to her. If she wants to go take that job, leave my kids here, and she, and actually don't even say that. Just say, what's best for my kids is for them to stay here with both parents here. No job, no career is worth more than that, not in my opinion. So yeah, no, I'm not okay with it. Most of the time, a judge will concur. And I say most of the time because there are exceptions always, right? So, you need to understand that the most critical, the most crucial time of the next 2 decades of your future, if you're looking at getting a divorce for the first time, these next 6 months to a year of your life are the most critical days of your life for the next couple of decades. You can always get a bed you can always get a roof later. You can always rebuild later. Focus on getting a good attorney. And like I said before, a good attorney is going to take a look at your financial situation. They'll take a look at your cash flow and income. It is their job to represent your best interest, which means if it's in your best interest to already have a place and be in the place, living there, paying bills with furniture and all that, they're going to work with you on the retainer to make sure that that happens for you. And if they don't work with you, then you don't need that attorney, right? Your attorney it's their job, it's their profession to represent your best interests in court. And that means working with you to make it happen. So, step one, get the attorney. It's more important than your mortgage or rent, because the results last for decades. They'll last a lot longer than your lease. It's probably going to last longer than your mortgage. And you have very little chance of going back to correct things once everything's finalized, including mistakes. If mistakes are made, very difficult to get that corrected. I want to tell a story about a personal friend of mine. He's going through a divorce. His ex-wife is a trust fund baby. She's not required to report the trust income as regular income because it's a trust. Or at least she had a good attorney. She was the first one to an attorney. And whenever they did the calculations for child support, spousal maintenance, alimony, all that stuff, the fact that she has an income from her trust that is enough for her to live on with no money from him. Like, she would be able to live just fine with her kids on their own without a job on the trust fund income. That's how much she made. She was the first one to an attorney. Guess what happened to him? It got court ordered for him to pay her more money per month than his entire income per month. So even if he moved back in with his mother and she paid for all the bills and the groceries, or father or whoever, if he went all the way back to being 100% funded and cared for by a parent or some other family member and put all of his income towards his obligations, he still would not be able to meet his obligations. And the court told him, well, you need to figure that out and figure out how to make more money. And he tried to explain that she had trust fund income, and it was objected to because it wasn't admissible for whatever reason, right? So that's a nightmare scenario. Well, I told him from the beginning, dude, get an attorney. You need an attorney. Does she have an attorney? And he said, well, yeah, she has some attorneys in her family that, they're willing to help us through the process. And I said, oh man, if the attorneys are in her family, you're sunk. You are sunk. They are not on your side. They're not on your side. It is their duty to get the best possible outcome and represent her best interests, not yours. And that's exactly what's going to happen. And that's exactly what did happen. If you're with somebody who is malicious, you cannot afford to be the second one to an attorney. Hands down. My advice, if it takes living in your car for a month or two and getting a membership to a 24-hour gym so you have a legit place to be at any hour of the day or night, that's what you need to do. Sadly enough, having a good attorney right out the gate and being the first one to an attorney is paramount. I cannot stress that enough. And I'm about out of time. Do please sound off in the comments. I want to hear your stories. Let me know if you have a nightmare story about an attorney or not having an attorney. If there's anything you feel that you want to add to this or bolster it up in any way, by all means, I want to hear from you. So thanks again for watching. I'll see you on the next video.